Hello, this is Mad Cat, the angry egalitarian that discusses this and that. Today is another edition of Things Feminists Say. Hotel feminism. I mean, California feminism. No, that's California raisins. Anyways, and remember, you can use all the bullshit statistics you want. I'm on to you. All right, so another wonderful Wednesday today. Taking a break from my writing to come to you today doing these videos. Just to let you know, son of a bitch, I hate you, YouTube. I hate you, but I still use you. I hates the YouTube. I hates it, but I loves it. I loves the YouTube. Yeah, it's my horrible Gollum voice. So just a heads up, my computer is really, really bad today, showing definite signs of wanting to just keel over and die. So I apologize if this is not such a great video series today. But let's go ahead and start the screen sharing. All right, so big news today. California governor approves expansive new equal pay protections targeting gender wage gap. Well, we don't really need to read this to smell the bullshit on it, although let's read it anyways. Okay, so female workers in California are getting new tools to challenge gender-based wage gaps under legal legislation that supporters say offers the strongest equal pay protection in the nation. Well, here's something for you. You already had it. You already had those protections. But let's continue on reading. The bill by Senator Hannah Beth Jackson, a Santa Barbara Democrat, expands California's existing equal pay law and goes further than federal law by placing the burden on the employers to prove a man's higher pay is based on factors other than gender. Now, you see what feminists are doing here is they're changing laws one by one. First, they started with rape laws. Now they're doing employment law, and Anita Sarkeesian and Zoe Quinn are doing online harassment. It's no longer in this country innocent until proven guilty. It is now under the Napoleonic feminist viewpoint that you are guilty until proven innocent. Now, if someone says that man over there killed someone, he is automatically innocent until a court system can prove he's guilty. This is what feminism looks like. Oh, but if they're discriminating against me, then they have to prove that they're not. No, you have to prove as the accuser that they are harassing you, that they're discriminating against you, that they're sexist against you, that the reason why you're not getting your promotions, your bonuses, and your salary increases is because of sexism. It's on you to prove that, not the employer. But now this is saying women are no longer responsible for proving their claim. It's now the employers who automatically have to prove that they're not doing it. Okay, and I won't read what you said on there. He said a comment that doesn't want to go on the air because it's extremely sexist. It also protects workers from discrimination and retaliation if they ask questions about how much other people earn, though it doesn't require that employers provide that information. Workers will also gain the right to sue. They already have that right. If they are paid less than someone with a different job title who does substantially similar work. Basically, what's that saying is if you perform a certain duty and someone in a different department performs a different duty, and that other person earns more money than you do, then you can sue the company for paying that person more money than you. Now, see, here's the kickers. I've worked in a call center before that actually would apply to, which the different departments were basically different clients they worked on. Some clients did support for an airline, others did it for a bank, others did it for a grocery store. And based on the contract with that employer, the different company determined how much each person got paid. And yeah, I was actually for one of the higher ones, which I won't say what the company is, but I ended up getting paid more than most people in the call center for the position that I did. And to some degree, other departments actually did more work than I did. But it was based not on the employer deciding how much I made, but based on the client. But by this law, and I'm not in California, so it wouldn't have really affected me, and I no longer work there. But this kind of law would say that if someone who did support for a grocery store saw me doing support for, some other industry, and I made more money than they did, even though they do more work than me, they could sue the company. That's what this kind of law is saying. I mean, if it was within your same division, okay, you have a case there. But if it's a different division within the company, no, I don't accept that. The Fair Pay Act stipulates employers can justify higher wages for men only if pay is based on seniority, a merit system, quantity or quality of product, or any other bona fide factor other than sex. Is it me, or do you notice that this seems to be heavily set against men? I mean, if this law says everything bad about men, like, oh, well, it's men who earn more money and, prevent women from earning equal amount, that's a very sexist law. Well, fortunately, we'll be looking at the law itself and see what it actually says. The new law takes effect January 1st. Brown is also considering a bill that aims to end a cycle of women's wages lagging behind men's pay by barring employers from using previously salary information as justification for paying women less than their male coworkers. I actually don't have a problem with that. I mean, if you're going to pay $80,000 for a job, then pay $80,000 for a job. Don't use previous work experiences on that. I mean, I've always hated that previous jobs ask me, well, send us the previous salaries you earned. I always thought that was a retarded thing. So yeah, I actually kind of agree with that one. Some state lawmakers say that they were motivated to pursue an equal pay legislation by heartfelt pleas from high-profile Hollywood actresses at this year's Academy Awards. Yeah, those high-profile Hollywood actresses out-earn anything most people in the world make. Boo-hoo! Hollywood actresses not making that much money. Boo-hoo! Boo-hoo! Shut the fuck up, you stupid cunts. And then lawyer Ellen Powell also made national waves when she filed a gender discrimination lawsuit against a prestigious venture capitalist firm in Silicon Valley. While she lost, the publicity prompted embarrassed soul searching in an industry dominated by male managers. Well, let me tell you something about Ellen Powell. She was a bad worker. And yet, when she left, she decided to have a lawsuit against the company saying that they discriminated against her as a woman. And she basically states that it was because she didn't get enough promotions. Yeah, she actually said she didn't get enough promotions, didn't get all the bonuses that she was supposed to get. Minus the fact that she was such a bad worker, hostile to other people, including other women, and even slept during a board meeting. I'm surprised they didn't fire her sooner. Oh, but Ellen Powell lost gender discrimination suit, which just proves that the court system is misogynist. No, it proves that they know what the fuck they're doing. Let's take a couple of things from chat. If you are watching this, go ahead and put something in chat and I will try to address it. With Anita's harassment laws, it's more like 1984 getting found guilty of thought crime. Yeah, basically. Lycan, I am a security guard who gets paid hourly. However, I was told that they would add a few cents an hour if I'm a good, reliable worker from recommendations of my supervisors. I bring this up because I do live in California and this could be bad for me and the company I work for. Out of curiosity, can you expand how that's going to be bad for you, Lycan? Because I would like to hear more about that. And as you type that up, let's take a look at the actual law. This will be fun. Yeah, as you can see, I've already painted it. So, conditions of employment, gender wage differential. Let me go ahead and zoom this up for you. Yeah, either I can have it far away or frickin' up close. So, SB 358 Jackson, conditions of employment, gender wage differential. Existing laws regulates the payment of compensation to employees by employers and prohibits an employer from conditioning employment on requiring an employee to refrain from disclosing the amount of his or her wages, signing a waiver of that right to disclose the amount of those wages, or discriminating against an employee for making such a disclosure. You know, I have a mixed bag about that, in all honesty. On the one hand, I understand that you shouldn't be discussing your wages because people are hired at different wages for all sorts of different things. And if an employee feels like they're being discriminated against, whether it's legitimate or not, that may affect their performance of work, which is why you generally don't discuss that. It's like going around and telling everyone every single time you have sex. Other people who are not getting any might feel like the world hates them and becomes more depressed about it. It's a crude example, but it was the best one I could think of off the top of my head. But I mean, I understand not discussing wages at work because it's not conductive to performing your task. You're getting paid what you're getting paid. Now, if you can there prove that you're getting paid because of your race or your gender, yeah, you have a problem. But there are also other factors in what determines what a person gets paid. Before we go into this, Lycan has responded. There are women who are also guards, so if they aren't as reliable as I am, that would cause them to be paid less for the same work. Well, as we're going to see, Lycan, according to this, that wouldn't affect you, according to what the law actually says. Now, how it's actually enforced is going to be completely different, but let's go ahead and take a look at that. Existing law generally prohibits an employer from paying an employee at a wage rate less than the rates paid to employees of the opposite sex in the same establishment for equal work on jobs, the performance of which requires equal skill, effort, and responsibility, and which are performed under similar working conditions. Now, this keeps saying opposite sex. So if it happens between two women, one is being paid more than the other, and it's for, maybe, they find her pretty, technically this law doesn't cover that. Just a thought. I understand this is against the wage gap issue, but still, this is only concerning opposite genders. It doesn't consider the same gender. Okay, so existing laws established exceptions to that, prohibiting where the payment is made pursuant to a seniority system, a merit system, a system which measures earnings by quantity or quality of the production, or a differential based on any bona fide factor other than sex. So, for you, Lycan, if you prove to be reliable, that you show up to work every day, that you do your job, and your supervisor does ratings on you, and you always get the best rating, and you get a couple of cents extra, that this law won't hurt you, because there is a clear and established reason why you're getting it, and it has nothing to do with your gender. So according to this law, it wouldn't affect you. Now, again, what the law says and how it's enforced will be two different things. And your company could still be taken to litigation over this if a female employee found out you were getting paid more money. And even if they said, well, it's because he performs well, they can still take them to court. And that's still going to be court costs that the company has to pay for. Oh, don't worry about it, Lycan. It is still something to be concerned with. Okay, so existing laws make it a misdemeanor for... Oh, wait, where am I? Oh, yeah. Existing laws make it a misdemeanor for an employer or other person acting either individually or as an officer, agent, or employee of another person to pay or cause to be paid to an employee a wage less than rate paid to any employee of the opposite sex as required by these provisions, or who reduces the wages of any employee in order to comply with these provisions. Yeah, it's a lot of legal mumbo jumbo. Basically, it says people need to be paid the same unless there's a mitigating circumstance that the person should be paid more, but it should never be based on gender. The bill would revise that, prohibiting to eliminate the requirement that the wage differential to be within the same establishment, and instead would prohibit an employee from paying any of its employees at wages rates less than those paid to all employees of the opposite sex for substantial similar work when viewed as a composite of skill, effort, and responsibility as specified. The bill would revise, if it wants to scroll down. Hello? There we go. The bill would revise and recast the expectations to require the employer to affirmatively demonstrate that a wage differential is based on one or more specified factors, including, blah, 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 blah. Basically, it's up to the employer to prove that this is happening. And also that each one of these factors is reasonably applied. The bill would prohibit an employer from discharging. Basically, a person can't be fired for asking the wage of another employee. They cannot be discriminated against, which would be a requirement of this law. Son of a bitch. Oh, don't do that to me. Oh, I think my browser just... Oh, whew, we're back. Like I said, my computer's being craptastic. The bill would authorize or retaliate. The bill would authorize an employee who has been discharged or discriminated or retaliated against in the terms and basically the same thing here. If you ask about someone else's salary, you cannot be fired. Also, you have to keep records from 2 years to now 3 years. And the rest of this was just mostly bullshit, but let's go into some more of the details of this. In 2014, the wage gender wage gap in California stood at 16 cents on the dollar. A woman working full-time year-round earned an average of 84 cents to every dollar a man earned. The 2014 California gender wage gap, I wonder if it's referring to this as soon as it wants to load. Gender pay gap California. Here, let me go ahead and get this zoomed in for you. Now, I'm not going to read this whole thing to you, but I'm going to point out a couple of things. First off, it says that year-round 78% U.S. men earnings, 22% basically women out-earn, men out-earn women by 78%. So women only make 22 cents for a man's dollar, and this was found in 2014. Now, according to a research post graduating to a pay gap, women only 1 year out of college working full-time were paid an average of 82 cents per a man's dollar. After controlling for hours work, occupation, college major, employment sectors, and other factors associated with pay, the gap shrinks but does not disappear. About 7% of the gap cannot be explained away. 7%. Now, this is relatively agreed upon by economists, by other female feminist researchers, by employers, by men's rights activists. They actually wagered that it's somewhere between 4 to 7% of a gap. And the reason for the gap across the board, not just for women 1 year out of college, is likely due to wage negotiation, salary negotiation, that men tend to ask for more money when they get hired. Maybe we should eliminate that. I don't know. That's a debate for another day. But again, it accounted for hours work, occupation, college major, employment sector, and other factors. And I believe I know the study that this is talking about. And there was someone on YouTube, I think it was V, managed to explain this even further down to 4% of a gap. However, as you can see below, this is what California is using. The mean average for men in California, 50,268 compared to women's 42,199, is an 84% difference, which is what they quoted. And of course, it divides things between men and women, but not take into account what their occupation is, what their experience is, what their education is, hours worked, full-time, part-time. It just takes a lump sum. Now, a couple of places like District 34, women out-earn men. But of course, that doesn't go into the calculations at all. But this does nothing else. So, of course, you're going to get that result. 84%. 84%. And that's what they're basing it off of. Something from column A, compare it to column B, and there's our magic number. That's all this is. Because, and this does, I did the math, it does, oh, finally the colors show up. 7% is what the actual gap is likely to remain at, which means that women earn 93 cents to a man's dollar when you account for all those other things. Maybe that's still a bit too high, and maybe we need to work on it, but it's a far cry different than 20 or 16 cents, or even this up here that says it's 22 cents. Let us continue. Let's see what other bullshit they have. They do talk about Latin women in California only make 44 cents for every dollar a white male makes. And I'm sure there's actually a legitimate reason for this happening. And it's not that people are racist or sexist against Latina women. God knows I'm not. Collectively, women working full-time in California lose approximately of $33,650,294,544 year due to the gender wage gap. Wait a minute. How the hell did they get that number? Well, I actually tried to find out how they got that number. I plugged that number into Google, and I came up with this. And guess what? Here's the number they quoted, saying the exact same thing, that they lose that every year. Well, it looks like there's a note here that tells us where they got that from. Okay, well, let's go take a look at that. Okay, let me go ahead and do the width. So number 4, I don't know if you can see this. See Note 1, U.S. Census Bureau, America Community Survey 1, Estimate 2011, Geography, all states within the United States, all states. Table B20005, sex by work experience in the past 12 months by earnings in the last 12 months for population 16 years and over. In fact, it's the same as number 1. So it gives us a website. Let's go to that website. Oh, son of a bitch. Hold on a moment. I apologize for this. There we go. Loading. Okay, so here is the table that they're referring to. So basically, it divides full-time and part-time work by gender and based on the number of people who worked in those fields, and then further by their salary. And there is no note 1, so it must have been referring to the article itself. And I'll tell you something, I did crunch these numbers. I looked at all of these numbers in every way I could think of. I do not know how they came up with this number of, well, let me go back to the actual, this $33 million. I do not know how they came up with that number from this. I mean, I even compared the difference in wages between men and women, full-time and part-time. And, you know, if I was a feminist, would I have so much ammunition if I was using biased feminist study methodology, that if I compared the total salary of all the men and women for the year of 2011 and their salaries, it would come up that women were losing $1,160,995,727,082 in the entire United States. That's what the differential is between men and women based on that faulty methodology. I further found that when you compare the wages, an average of wage to the single man versus woman, it's about a 76% difference. That by that calculation, women earn 76 cents per man's dollar, which the other study was saying that's how they got it. However, I found an interesting result. When I looked at it and I started color coding things, because that's what I do, I use a 5-color system, so it shows you how complex I am. But I found that when up to $30,000, like $1 to $30,000, women outperformed men. And this included full-time and part-time work. That men earned 88 cents to a feminist dollar to wages up to $30,000 a year. However, if we looked at from that to $100,000, men outperformed women. That women earned 61 cents to a man's dollar. If I was, a corrupt feminist, I could exploit this in all the different ways I can. But still, to the point, I cannot find how this bill came up with that erroneous number that women are losing that much per year. And I don't know why it's appearing black for you. Yeah, how is it calculating that? I can find that it's based on this study, and that this study was based on this result, but that still doesn't answer how they got that. So this bill is using incorrect data. Who gives a shit, right? I mean, they're still going to pass the law. It doesn't matter if the information is correct or not, just so long as feminists get what they want. It goes on further to say that the wage gap contributes to the higher statewide poverty rate among women, which stands at 18% compared to the approximately 15% for men. Now, I don't know how that's measuring it. Is it measuring the total number of women versus the total population? How is it accounting 18%? 18 versus 15%? Because I'm willing to bet that if you actually took the raw data of how many men and women were living on the streets, I bet you anything it would be more men living on the streets than women. But again, it doesn't tell me how it arrived at these standards. And if anyone out there knows how they arrived at these standards, please let me know. Tell me how they arrived at these numbers, because I mean, hell, even if it proves me wrong, tell me. California has prohibited gender-based wage discrimination since 1949. However, it has evolved to the last 4 decades to now match the Equal Pay Act of 1963. Now, both of these for California have prevented wage discrimination against women. Did it still happen? Yeah, it probably did. And there probably wasn't much that women could do about it. But now we're talking about a law that was, designed for minorities and women to say that they couldn't be paid less. That's nearly 50 years old. Or 50 or 60 years old. I can't do math. And yet, you still need to pass a law that says that women can now do these things that they could have already done. However, state provisions are rarely utilized because the current statutory language makes it difficult to establish a successful claim. Yeah, I call bullshit on that one. Pay secrecy also contributes to the gender wage gap because women cannot challenge wage discrimination they do not know exists. Okay, that's a fair point. Although California law prohibits employers from banning wage disclosures and retaliation against employees for engaging in this activity, it is practiced in many In practice, many employees are unaware of these protections. Okay, so you're creating a law that gives people what they already have because people don't know about them. How are you going to be guaranteed that people are going to know about these laws if people don't know about the old laws? Seems more of a PR campaign than actually doing any legislation. Yeah, and this is the conditions in which someone can pay another worker of the opposite sex more money that's not based on race. A seniority system, merit system, measures earning by quantity or quality, bona fide factors other than sex, such as education, training, or experience. But these have to be business necessity, meaning that it must be specific to the business. So if you have a, let's say a security guard position, like my friend Lycan here, and he happens to have a degree in nuclear fission. Well, to pay him more for a degree in nuclear fission for a security job guard, a security guard job, sorry, my brain is starting to go, is not a business necessity and would be against the law according to this law. Any employer who violates this is liable to the employee affected in the amount of wages, interest thereon, which I'm not 100% sure of what that means, but I guess they apply interest to the amount of money they were due, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but okay, of which the employer is deprived by the reason of the violation, an additional equal amount as liquidated damages. I also don't fully understand liquidated damages, but I guess if if it somehow hurt their feelings, they might get a little bit extra more money. So the rest of this is just a lot of mumbo jumbo legal bullshit about how it's going to be enforced. It's not really worth a read, but here's the thing with this law is that it sounds good on paper until, one, you realize that this system was already in place, that employers couldn't prevent people from disclosing their wages. Now, they still try to force their employees to do so, okay, but they weren't allowed to do that. But they say people didn't know what the law is, so we're passing a law so people know what the law is. How about you just educate people on the law? How about you amend laws that already exist? This is nothing but a PR campaign of saying, hey, women, guess what? You can now sue your employer. Minus the fact that you already could, but you can now sue them. Hurrah! About the only thing this law actually does that's worth mentioning that it didn't do, well, no, never mind. I'm getting lost in thought. But you know what? I actually support this law. Bum, bum, bum. Why do I support this law? Because I want feminists to use it. Feminists everywhere, well, mostly in California. If you can prove discrimination, if you can prove that you're being paid less than a male coworker, I've said this before I ever heard about this law. If you can prove it, go to court. Get a lawsuit on your hands. And I bet you anything a lawyer would do this on the winnings of your case. Seriously, go and do it if you can prove it. But I'm willing to bet you anything that very few lawsuits occur because of this. Because if a male is earning more money, it's probably because he's doing more work. It's probably because he has more responsibilities. It's probably because he does overtime. And that women have been shown to do less work and demand equal pay. So I encourage you, feminists, I challenge you. I challenge you to use this law now that you already had to get lawsuits. Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead and do it. I'm not joking. I'm being 100% serious. Go and do it, because I bet you anything you will not win as many lawsuits as you think, especially since most feminists that ever talk about this issue, it's always like, well, my friend's mother or my cousin's girlfriend. It's never that it happens to them directly. They always hear about it, in some distant connection they have. Because I'll tell you, it doesn't actually happen. There are a lot of I can't think of the word, but mitigating circumstances to why there's a difference in pay. And maybe, and this will sound sexist, maybe if you got off your ass and did your job and worked hard, maybe you would get paid more money than your male counterpart. Now, there are women out there that do work hard, and I support them. And I say, if you are still getting paid less than what you should be, you definitely need to pursue that. But there are a lot of cunts out there that are not doing their fair share and expecting everyone to still cater to them because they have a motherfucking vagina. Well, no, you selfish cunt. You do not get paid more money because you do less work. You get paid more money when you go above and beyond for your job. Like my friend here, Lycan. You know what? He does good work. He impresses his supervisor. He proves he's reliable. He's going to get extra money for that, because he's earned it, because he's worked for it. And there's going to be some cunt that's like, well, why is he getting more money? I do the same job. Well, your performance reviews are bad. You're just being sexist to me. You're oppressing me. I'm going to sue you, and you now have to prove that you're not being sexist to me. That's what it's going to come down to. Like in broadcasting, sad state of affairs when a nuclear physicist has to get a security guard job. Well, the economy was pretty bad there for a while. So this is just a retarded law of giving people rights they already have. That's all this law is. And I feel for anyone who works in California, especially men working in California right now, especially employers in California. I mean, if they're breaking the law, fine. Take them to court. Sue them. Get your lost wages. Have at it. But what this is going to do is feminists are going to come forward and tie up the legal system and incur a lot of expenses for having to go to court to prove that they're not being sexist. That maybe it's because women are not working as hard as their male counterparts. And that's why they're complaining about wage gap. Anyways, that does it for me. I've got one more video to do after this, so join me in a couple of minutes for that. Stay tuned to my Twitter account for that. Next week, I'm having a special video with NC Clark. Wonderful woman, very funny. I think I'm somewhere in her death threats notebook. Pretty sure I am. But check out her videos if you ever get the chance. She's just very funny. But I'll be doing a video with her next week. Not sure what about, but I just want her on the channel. Also, I'm very close to releasing my next book that will go for $2.99. But I may occasionally offer her a coupon deal for my videos. Like, hey, if you watch this video, enter this, and you might get like 25 or 50% off. So, but that's due out in a couple of weeks. I am trying to push before Halloween. Also, I do have my free ebook out right now. The link is down below if you want to check that out. It's about vampires in medieval Europe that are actually spreading the bubonic plague. Why would they spread the bubonic plague? That makes no sense. Read the book to find out. Okay, it doesn't actually answer that question in the first, but kind of introduces the world. This is kind of an introduction to an ongoing series, but still very good, and it is free, so you can download it. Lastly, also check out my Patreon. If you like what I'm doing here, I love doing these videos. I wish I could have a higher production value. I wish I could have a better computer to do all of this, as we saw with today. But go ahead and check out my Patreon down below. Now, my main concern is about my medical costs, about getting a new treatment that could potentially fix me well enough that I could get a part-time job. And believe me, I would rather do that than to have a Patreon. But until that time, I need support. But even if $1, I just got 290 subscribers. If all of those 290 gave me just $1, that would help me out so much, because I could get the medical thing that I need. And it's like a long series of tests that would probably take about 2 years. But I could get that, I could get insurance, and I could start getting my life off the ground and also improve videos. So again, $1 goes a long way, and it's per month. So don't think like, well, it's per video. No, it's per month. Anyways, I'll start a video in about 5-6 minutes. So check me out there. And this is Mad Cat signing off.